And I read a lot of fluffy things. I mean, like, there were harder topics in some of the. Sorry, there's a truck backing up and it just started beeping and it startled me and I thought something was going off in the apartment. That scared me. Okay, you definitely can't hear it, but my brain just short-circuited there. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with some books that I love, but just don't talk about. So I was thinking about books that I just love. Thinking about like 5 stars and books that I just rave and rave and rave about on this channel, which made me think about books that I read before my BookTube channel, or things that were kind of like childhood favorites, or things that I love but like mentioned once on this channel like really early on, or just haven't mentioned at all. So I kind of just went through my Goodreads and looked at what books I've read, starting at the first books I ever put on Goodreads and back. And I know that there's some that I'm missing, but I kind of just compiled a list. I think I've got like 8 or so books or book series here that I just never talked about for one reason or the other. So I thought I would take some time today to highlight those. I don't expect this to be a particularly long video. I don't think I have a lot to say about some of these, just that I really enjoyed them. And I wanted to mention some that maybe you've never heard about or you've never heard me talk about. So that's what we're doing today. We're just going to dive right on in. I only have a couple of these. Some of these I do own, but they're in a box somewhere of like books that I loved when I was in like middle and high school that I want to hold on to, but like just don't need out on my shelves. The first one is one that I own. And I've talked about it a little bit, but it's The Heir by Joanna Lindsey. I do believe this is part of a duology, but this is the very first historical romance book I ever read. I definitely picked this up at like a garage sale or something. I think I paid a whole like 25 cents for it. Like I remember I read this at the end of like, I want to say end of high school. No, I think I read this when I was in college. And like I'd been a big reader my entire life, but I hadn't really gotten into some of the more smuttier stories. That was just not a genre that I had explored yet. Or maybe not genre is not the right word, but I wanted to know what this was about. I was really into like Regency style. I was just kind of, or historically set books in Regency. I was just starting to kind of discover that about me. I had just read Pride and Prejudice for the first time. It was in this era of Kelsey's reading. And so I picked this one up. I think I remember my mom rolling her eyes because she knew what this book was going to be. And I was just discovering it kind of for the first time. And I ended up loving it. It is, I don't remember a ton about it. I mean, I do. It follows our 2 main characters, who's a duke and a woman named Sabrina. Oh, he becomes the sole heir of an English Marquis, but he's from Scotland. And I read this physically, and the way that it's written, like you have a Scottish accent in your head. So this also introduced me to Scottish romances as well. And Sabrina, looking back on it, if I reread this, I might have different opinions, but I remember her being plus sized. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if it was plus sized for the time period, which is a whole different conversation, but like in my head, she was plus sized. And I really liked seeing those things in a book. And this introduced all of the things that you expect in a historical romance. It was just my first dip. And so I've read many a Joanna Lindsey book because of this one. I would love to reread this and see if it still holds up. I'm sure there are things about it that I wouldn't love as much now, which I think is a statement true for a lot of the books on this list. But I have mentioned this a couple of times, I think, in passing on my channel, but I've never really talked about it. And like, this is the copy that I've had since I picked it up randomly. So this started a lot of things for me, and I still think very, 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 very highly of it. I would love to reread that. Like, the more I talk about it, the more I want to reread that one. All right, the next one, actually, I don't know how I did this, is the other one that I currently I have a physical copy of, which is the first book, The Magician's Nephew. It's the first book in the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. There are, like 7 or 8 books in that series. I've read the first, 5, I think. There's a couple that I I haven't picked up yet. We read The Chronicles of Narnia. We read the second book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, in middle school, I want to say. And then there was an advanced class that read The Magician's Nephew. Why they read a different one, even though it's the same series, I will never understand. But I don't talk a ton about that series because A, it's one that a lot of people know about, but B, as of reading them now, I don't love the books because I don't love the way they're written. I find them boring. I find the writing style to be boring. It's that kind of classic high fantasy detached style for me, and I don't know why that is, but in the last few that I've read, I have not loved them. But when I read this one, I loved it. So this one is a standout for me. I haven't finished the series, of course, so like I'm not one day I'm sure I will. It's not a priority for me. But like this one started everything. I feel like a lot of us knew The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and so this is a really interesting story of how the the world of Narnia became a thing, and the boy that helped. I always think very highly of this book. Like, this is my favorite book in the series. The rest are okay. This one's very good, and I would love to see this. I'm sure it would be a super boring movie because it's all about the origins of stuff, but like they kept making Narnia movies, so I was like, why can't you make the first one? Okay, the next one is one that I read, I think, in one sitting, which is Perks of Being a Wallflower, of course, which is by Stephen Chbosky. I never know if I'm pronouncing that name right. I know I have this somewhere. I just don't know where. And I like classic books are in my office, so there's a chance it's there, but I know it's somewhere. My parents gave me this book for Christmas one year, and I believe I was in college when I read it. And I finished it in one sitting. Like, I read it over winter break. It did not go to college with me. I finished it very quickly. Now, it's a very short book, and it's one that I think a lot of people have read, but it was my first step into something that was kind of more popular, something that was maybe leaned a little more adult. Like, I know it's set in high school, but like you follow this kid who is clearly going through some stuff, and it's a little bit of a, like, it has a lot of harder topics in it. I've definitely, like, my reading up to that point was fluffy stuff, like stuff for enjoyment. I definitely read things that included harder topics, but like I didn't focus on those. I was in for the fun ride. And this book focused on harder topics. I'm sure there are things that I didn't pick up while reading it, but like this is a book that I don't know where my copy is, so it hasn't come up in like tags or lists or anything like this. But like it's one of those staples that I feel like everyone at least knows about. You might not have all read it, but you all heard about it in some way. The next one is one that I loved. I read it in college. I read it for a class that was all about, it was called Christian literature, and it was all about reading books. Like, we were thinking like Wonder and other things like that. But one of the books that we read was The Shack by William Paul Young. And this was, I think this is a pretty polarizing book, but maybe I'm wrong about that. And I don't really talk about it a lot because it doesn't fit in with a lot of the like tags or topics or things that I do on this channel. But I still think really highly of this because it introduced me to some ideas that I had been kind of percolating in my brain for a while, and I'd never seen it written out, or I'd never seen things written in a way that I was like, oh, I'm not the only one who thinks these things. So there was a couple of things in here that I found really, really interesting. It was turned into a movie, which I loved, but I definitely picked it up for a class. And I don't read a lot of Christian literature. It's just not a subgenre that I read a lot of. Like, I am more of a fantasy romance. You guys know this. Like, those are the genres that I gravitate towards. I don't know if I would have ever picked this one up. So I'm glad that I did, because I think it's steeped in the story of grief and how to deal with that. And I just found it a very interesting story. And like I said, I was like very new to, I won't say Christianity because like I've gone to church my whole life, but I was in college. I was questioning things for the first time. I was thinking, I mean, I did that in high school too, but like I was thinking for myself. I was making choices for me. I was having those deeper conversations in my head about certain things and what I thought and what I believed. And so seeing things like that written down was just really nice to see. And so I don't know, it's been many a year since I read this, if it would still hold up now that I've gotten older and kind of solidified in what I think. But um, at the time, there was a couple of passages that I was like, okay, I like the way this is going. The next one is on here because I read this in college. So this was before my BookTube journey. My college library had like a small, like, fiction section. I feel like a lot of people in college went to the college library for resources and for research and things like that. So I didn't discover the section right away, but I picked up The Host by Stephanie Meyer from there, and I took it home over like Thanksgiving break or something. And I remember reading it. I took the megabus, for those who know, and I read it basically the entire ride, which was not a short ride. And I devoured. This is a thick book. This is like a 600 to 700 page book, and I read it within a couple of days. And this was before I ever got into audiobooks. Like, I got into audiobooks a little bit in college, a little bit later on in college. I started listening to them to help me with some books for classes that I know I wasn't going to have time to finish or like really dive into. And so I used them a little bit. There's like a couple of them here and there. I didn't really get into audiobooks until I graduated college and I got into news and listening to audiobooks. Like, I was able to do that. So this book I read entirely physically, and I fell in love with it. Now, I will mention that I knew the story going in. When this book was first announced, of course I looked into it because I'd only read the Twilight series by Stephanie Meyer, and I was very curious what other things this author was writing. And the synopsis was like very sciencey. It seemed like something I wasn't going to be interested in, so I didn't pick it up. And then we got the movie. Like, it became a movie a few years later, or more than that. And we got it like as a freebie for something. I don't remember why we have it. Or maybe my dad just randomly picked it up. I don't know what it was, but we got the movie and watched it. And I fell in love with the movie. I thought it was very well done. And I said, I'm curious about this book now. Now that I kind of know what this is about, one day I'm going to pick it up. And that day was like Thanksgiving break freshman year in college. And so I picked it up and fell in love with it. And I remember the plot. Like, I remember the basic plot structure and, how this book begins, ends, and the like twists along the way. The book was, of course, 10,000 times better. And I don't remember a lot of details from it, but I remember how I felt. And I absolutely loved my reading experience. I flew through this. I could not put it down. I literally remember sitting on the megabus because it was dark and it was a long trip. And I was I was using, I think, some like emergency light as my light to read. It was super dark on this bus. And I was like, I can't put this book down. So I strained my eyes in ways I probably am regretting now, but like, I just loved this experience so much. So don't talk a lot about this. I don't, I could own this. I think I own this, but maybe I don't. Like, maybe I didn't pick it up because I read it like through the library or something. I don't know what it was, but I loved this book so much. I loved my experience reading it. And I just never talk about it because I forget that I've read it, to be honest. So here's my excuse to talk about it because I just remember loving it so much. So the next one is it's an entire series, and it's a series that I refuse to reread because I enjoyed it so much at the time, but I know if I reread it, I would not enjoy it as much. And that is the Selection series by Kierkegaard. Specifically the first three. It's a 5-book series. And the first 3 follow one couple, and then the last 2 in the book follow their daughter. And it's like a dystopian romance bachelor style competition of sorts for love, of course. And I devoured this. I think I picked this one up right before I started my BookTube channel because I think I started my BookTube channel in like January, and I was reading these for Y'all Fest, and I'm pretty sure we went to Y'all Fest once before I started my BookTube channel. I thought Kierkegaard was going to be at Y'all Fest, and she might have been, but I wasn't able to find her, or maybe she couldn't at the last minute. I can't remember what it was, but I read them and then we didn't actually see her. We've seen her since, and I have all of these books signed in personal somewhere. in that box of stuff somewhere. Um, but I will never read because I have read things since this series by this author, and they didn't hit the same. And I think that this is an author that, like, if I had read all of her stuff, like when I was in like high school and college, I would have been all about. But I've read enough stuff since, and my reading tastes have changed, and my genres and age groups of preference have changed. And like, I am not the target audience for her books, which is totally fine. That's why I will not reread the series, because I know that I will not enjoy them as much. Maybe I will. Maybe it'll be nostalgic, and I will just surpass any issues that I would have had. But I loved this series so much. I mean, this is 5 books. They're not super long books, but it's 5 books. And I'm not sure I devoured all of them, but I think I devoured the first 3 at least before we went to Y'all Fest. It was so much fun. I remember sitting on the couch in our apartment, and my friend Lauren, who you guys have met many times, had read them before. And I picked them up and started reading them, and like would have moments where I would like squeal, and she would come in and go, "Are you okay?" And I would tell her what just happened, because like I said, she'd read them already and she knew. So it was just, this was one of those, like, it was a lot of fun. It was a fun reading experience. I think very highly of the series. I refuse to reread them so that I do not spoil my love of the series, because I think that I would. I think this did not age with me as far as my reading tastes, which is totally fine. Like, that's what happens. But I'm going to hold on to that nostalgia. I'm not letting it go. The next one is one that I have read recently, like within the last like 3 or 4 years. I was in our house, the most recent place that we lived before this. I was there. So it has been after we were married. So it's been on the more recent side of my BookTube journal. So I have mentioned this. I think I talked about it when I read it, but that was it. And I do not own this anymore. I unhauled it because it is a tough subject, and I know that I would never read it, and I wanted to let other people read it. The book I'm talking about is Grown by Tiffany D. Jackson. This is a story about grooming, specifically in the music industry, and it is a really tough story. It does not shy away from the terrible things. It is one of those, like, it's a, like, in hindsight kind of situation where I think it follows this girl who is on trial for the murder of this guy who basically groomed her, and the book is her story of like how they met until the end, if I remember correctly. It's been, like I said, a couple of years or more since I read this. I don't talk about this a lot because I don't own it, so it's not at the forefront of my brain, but I do remember my reading experience. I do remember how tough of a story it was, and I remember thinking everyone needs to read this, which is why I unhauled it. I unhauled it not because it was bad, but because it was so good I need other people to read it. And I thought, I'll give it to my used book warehouse, and somebody else can discover it for cheaper and be exposed to the story. So it's a tough story. But I think that's what makes it so good, is that it is such a tough story, but it's written in a way that works for, like, it's a YA book, so it's written in a way that works for younger readers. It's a very well done story. It's a tough story. It's a good book. I really like it. It's one that I don't talk about a lot because it just never comes up in the lists or tags that I do, but it's one that is important, and I wish I talked about it more. And the last one is one of those just super fun things that I think I read a few years ago, and I've definitely mentioned on this channel. It's a duology, and I just never mentioned it since, but it was so good. And that is the Wall Street Titan duology by Anna Zaris. I had these on audiobook. I picked up one because I think my friend was like, "You must read this," and I said, "Okay," and I ended up binging both. It's one of those series that, like, it's one story split in 2, so like you need the second one right away. And there are other books by this author that I am interested in because I read this one. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's like a billionaire romance. It's not my thing. Like, I usually don't lean towards billionaire romances. Like, they're fine. Clearly I loved this one, but like those are not buzzwords for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I'd never read anything about this author. So I went in, I don't know what I was expecting, but I think I went in not expecting a lot, and it was just a fun ride. Like, it's a smutty romance story, and it has all the tropes. It has all of the things that you expect in this kind of story. You've read this story many, many times before, but the way it was written, I think, was what made it so much more enjoyable for me. And I just like flew through these 2 books. And it's one of those series or books that, like, if you are someone who has guilty pleasure reads, this one might fall in that. But I just loved it so much. I love the story. I love the characters. I fell in love with them so quickly. And like I said, I've looked into other things by this author. I just haven't had time to read them yet because I enjoyed this one so much. So, contemporary romance. This probably, I got this on like Kindle Unlimited or something like that. And when you get books on Kindle Unlimited, sometimes they're really good and sometimes they're not. Like, it just kind of like depends. And so this one was one of the very good ones. I loved this duology. I feel like I don't talk about it ever except for like when I do a wrap up on it. That's it. Those are my random books that I wanted to mention as far as books that I loved and just don't talk about. I know some of them I did talk about at some point on my channel, but like I haven't talked a lot about them, and I just wanted to bring them to your attention again. If you are people who enjoy anything or like the genres that I mentioned, I realize I don't think I talked about what any of these books are about. So of course I'll leave any that I can linked back down below. So feel free to check out any of them if they sound good, because they were all fantastic. I think all of these got 4 or 5 stars. I'm not sure all of them got 5 stars, but they all got like relatively high ratings. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed this chill sit down video. Let me know if there are some books that you would recommend that you just absolutely love, but you don't talk a ton about. Not necessarily if you are in like the bookternet world, but just like in general, if there are books that you love that you just want to recommend based on something I've said, or if there are books that you just want to recommend because they're your faves. Let me know all of that down below. Ooh, if you want to comment something but you're not sure what to comment, comment the ring emoji for The Magician's Nephew. I don't know why there's rings on there. I have forgotten. But that is the cover I saw, so that is what we're going with. But if you like this video, and I very much hope that you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there as well as other fun bookish links, so check all that out, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.